In the city of Kaifeng, archaeologists are now excavating a bridge from the Song Dynasty, known as the Zhouqiao Bridge, which means prefectural bridge, dating back over 1,000 years. During the Northern Song Dynasty, the bridge lay at the center of the city, where it served as an important hub for commercial activities. On the embankment near the bridge, archaeologists have unearthed the largest collection of Northern Song stone carvings in China. These carvings depict seahorses, cranes, auspicious clouds, and other patterns, confirming the vibrant scenes described in a book written at the time, The Eastern Capital, A Dream of Splendor. Zhouqiao Bridge spans the Bianhe River, which was the most crucial canal section during the Northern Song period. As part of the Grand Canal system in the Sui and Tang dynasties, the Bianhe River was a vital waterway for commerce in and out of the city of Kaifeng. The city flourished alongside the canal, which contributed to its rapid growth. As the river continues to flow, the status of Kaifeng is poised for even greater advancement, reflecting the trajectory of China's development. Join us as we step into this historical site to catch a glimpse of an ancient era. The Song dynasty was established in the year 960. During the decades that followed, it developed into a dynasty of aspiration, celebrated for its profound humanistic spirit, rich social and cultural heritage, and pioneering achievements across various fields. Some historians have described it as China's own Renaissance. At the dynasty's beginning, of course, nobody knew how long it would last or what the future held in store. To its vast north lay the formidable Liao Kingdom, which had long been controlling the 16 prefectures of Yinyun and posed the greatest threat to the Song Empire's borders. Clearly, ensuring security was the paramount concern for the newborn kingdom. Recognizing this, Zhao Kuangyin, the founding emperor of the Song dynasty, needed to select a capital location that would safeguard both his territory's northern and northwestern frontiers. Chang'an and Luoyang, the capitals of the Song dynasty's predecessor, the Tang dynasty, were no longer suitable because years of conflict had blocked the canals reaching them. Establishing the capital in either location would require immense effort and resources. Kaifeng, as the capital during the Five Dynasties and Ten Kingdoms period, emerged as a significant alternative. This historical capital, it was realized, might offer a relatively economical and prudent solution. One problem was that Kaifeng's flat surroundings, without any geographical barriers, offered no protection against external invasion.
这个开封，过去说这叫四战之地，四面八方都可以打你啊！因为他没有任何天险，他还是一心想迁到洛阳去。
Compared to strategically significant locations like Chang'an and Luoyang, Kaifeng offered no geographical defensive barriers. Zhao Kuangyin, however, understood the importance of shifting perspectives to overcome challenges. Kaifeng's convenient access and lack of geographical barriers made it an ideal location for launching campaigns towards both north and south. Rather than relying on natural shields, Zhao chose to deploy his troops extensively across the vast plains surrounding the capital. The bold decision would create substantial demands. Whether for defense or to avoid the chaos of the five dynasties at the end of the Tang Dynasty, centralizing power was essential. Zhao Kuangyin planned to station over half of the country's military forces in the capital. The influx of troops, however, would lead to a massive need for food and a sharp increase in the demand for military supplies. When it came to food production, since the mid-Tang Dynasty, the region from Chang'an to Luoyang had relied heavily on external supplies. By the early Northern Song Dynasty, food shortages in the north worsened an already dire situation. This painting, Fishing in the Snow, was created during the Song Dynasty. It depicts fishermen braving the winter cold to fish in the snow. Snowscapes were a popular theme in Chinese landscape painting during the Song Dynasty, perhaps because of the climate changes of that era. From the late Tang Dynasty to the early Northern Song Dynasty, through the five dynasties, the world experienced what had been called a Little Ice Age. Northern China faced severe cold weather, with over 70 snow disasters recorded in History of Song, treatises of five elements, especially during the early years of the Northern Song Dynasty. With the effects of the cold weather exacerbated by continuous warfare in the Central Plains before the Northern Song, the grain-producing regions of the north were incapable of meeting the demands of the whole dynasty. How could the shortfall be made good? The government cast its eyes to the south. In Lishui, Zhejiang Province, every year during the grain and ear solar term in June, ritual ceremonies are held to pray for good weather. Lishui is renowned for its millennia-old rice civilization, which has gained it recognition as a globally important agricultural heritage site. Tracing the development of agriculture today, we can clearly see how vitality finds its way through adversity. During the Five Dynasties and Ten Kingdoms period, a large proportion of the population of the Central Plains migrated south to escape war, bringing an influx of labor into the Jiangnan region, south of the lower reaches of the Yangtze River. Their arrival boosted the development of agriculture there. Assisted by the region's favorable climate, its area of land under cultivation increased, and with it grain production. Jiangnan gradually became China's major grain-producing region, with rice rising to prominence during the Song Dynasty, when it became the staple food of the Chinese people. So, with Kaifeng as his chosen capital, the problem facing Zhao Kuangyin was how to gather the grain of Jiangnan and transport it in. With a magnificent canal in Kaifeng, the solution was readily at hand. With the first phase of excavation at the Zhouqiao Bridge site approaching completion, the scene of the canal back then gradually unfolds. Riverside Scene at Qingming Festival, a masterpiece by the renowned Song Dynasty painter Zhang Ziduan, vividly depicts scenes of unloading grain along the Bianhe River. A flat-bottomed barge docks along the riverbank, while laborers remove grain from it, which they deliver to a granary. As illustrated, the canal became a lifeline for supplying grain to the Song capital Kaifeng, serving as the vital artery, connecting the nation's political and military center in the north with its economic center in the south. With resources assured, a large number of troops and their families settled in Kaifeng for the long term. The bustling traffic on the canal not only facilitated the movement of goods, but also brought in a significant floating population who engaged in trade activities and gradually became urban residents. At its peak, the population of Kaifeng during the Northern Song Dynasty reached 1 million. People from all walks of life gathered along the canal, the sounds of their activity filling the air, amidst the prosperity and boundless vitality of the capital. From riverside scene at Qingming Festival, we also noticed the absence of walls separating residential and commercial areas that once existed in the city of Chang'an, which is today Xi'an in Shaanxi province, during the Tang Dynasty. The system of zoning that separated residential and commercial areas under the Tang Dynasty was changed to a system connecting such areas during the Song Dynasty, with Kaifeng as China's capital. Streets, alleys, bridges, and intersections in the city became bustling hubs of commerce, marking an unprecedented urban layout and lifestyle. This is the Drum Tower Night Market in Kaifeng today. A hive of bustling exchange, the night markets of the capital during the Northern Song Dynasty were no less vibrant. 5 years after the founding of the dynasty, Zhao Kuangyin delayed the start time of the city's curfew to 1 a.m., encouraging the development of commerce and industry. A century later, the curfew was completely canceled, allowing many shops to operate 24 hours a day. The Southern songwriter, Meng Yuanlao, recorded several famous markets within Kaifeng at the time. The night market is open until midnight, yet it already reopens at dawn. Speaking of leisure venues, they keep running all night long. Round-the-clock commercial activity had become a daily routine for certain Kaifeng residents. The prosperity ushered in by water transportation not only changed people's relationship with land, but also the traditional pattern of production of society. With canal activity flourishing, crowds flocked to its banks, leading to the prosperity of towns and cities. During the Northern Song Dynasty, there were more than 15 cities with a population of over 100,000 along the canal, marking significant progress in urban development in China.
"这就意味着什么呢？意味着城市发展起来了，这是在全世界范围内率先进入近代城市的开端，完全是因为运河。"
In hindsight, Zhao Kuangyin's decision to establish the capital in Kaifeng was the right choice. The city could both defend against external threats and oversee the economic development of a new nation. The canal, upon which the city heavily relied, naturally became the nation's lifeblood. The Tongji Canal, dug during the Sui dynasty, was referred to as the Bianhe River during the Tang and Song dynasties. By the time of the Northern Song dynasty, goods transported via the southern canals were shipped through it to Kaifeng. These goods not only had to meet the needs of soldiers garrisoned in the city, along with its nearly 1 million residents, they also had to be transported to the frontier to meet the massive demands of the troops guarding it. The Bianhe River, therefore, became the foundation of the Northern Song regime. During this period, the Bianhe River sourced water from the Yellow River. Because of a drop in the water level and ice formation on the Yellow River in winter, its navigable period each year was limited to around 6 months. Moreover, during the Northern Song dynasty, natural disasters occurred almost every year, significantly impacting the stability of grain output. The primary challenge for the ruler at the time, therefore, was how to efficiently use transportation capacity within each year's 6-month window to ensure the smooth operation of this vital artery. Yizheng, known as Zhanzhou during the Song dynasty, served as a relay point between the northern section of the Grand Canal and the Yangtze River.
当然，转班的地方有4个，就是真州、扬州、楚州4州。但是从当时宋人的叙述话语里面呢，真州显然是最重要的一个转班地点。
To transport grain from Jiangnan to Kaifeng, vessels had to cross the Yangtze River. The Bianhe River, however, was too shallow to support riverboats with a deep draft. So, the Northern Song government adopted the Tang Dynasty's transportation method and established relay granaries at key locations along the water transport route of the tribute grain, with a supply commission to manage them.
是讲的就是在真州这个地方建了一个叫建安仓的一个转班仓，对，很有价值。对，这就是这个第一手的反映这个转班仓建设的这个背景的。 当时京沪南北，还有江南东西，还有两镇，他们离开封比较远，长途直达运输都是有诸多的限制。那么这个时候，他们这个继承了唐代的一个运输制度，叫转班法。转班法就是说呢，他们这几个路要运到开封的粮食与其他的物资，先存放到真州、泗州、楚州、扬州这几个地方。 然后再有这个发运司组织汴河过来的船，把这些粮食呢转运到开封去。
Although the relay transport system enabled grain-carrying riverboats to navigate the Bianhe River, frequent disasters led to instability in the grain output of Jiangnan region. During years of poor harvests, grain delivered to the relay granaries often fell short of required quotas, prompting the government to grant more functions to the supply commission.
那发运司先有一个底本，专门的一个专门的资金，那负责呢在东南6路或者某一路遇到欠收年月，他粮食不能及时供应京师的情况下，他用这笔钱在这个丰收的这个地区呢，他是这个给他购买，然后带他转运中央。这个欠收的地方呢，然后再想方设法，再在合适的机会补充上这样一个缺额。这样一个制度，保证了朝廷各方面的需求。
The Northern Song Dynasty had a heavy reliance on the canal system. Although the transportation methods and procedures of this system had been laid down during the Tang Dynasty, the Song Dynasty's management of it far exceeded the Tang Dynasty's in sophistication and complexity. Under the Song, grain transported along the canal was organized into batches of a given quantity. Hence, tribute grain transport was also known as partial shipment. To improve efficiency and prevent losses, the government established a special institution called the Partial Shipment Urging Office to incentivize boats carrying batches to arrive safely at designated areas within specified time limits. Although the officials couldn't control the sails of the boats or increase the canal's capacity, they were conscientious in pressing the boats to depart on time. They not only managed the boats within the region for which they were responsible, but also traveled on horseback to supervise the loading of boats and make sure, when possible, no boat was idle. Thus, tribute grain transport became a finely tuned system, supervised by various officials. Boat allocation officials were responsible for managing boat dispatch and warehouse transactions. Unloading officials oversaw the unloading and transportation of goods carried by boats. And supply allocation officials were responsible for the timely allocation and dispatch of money, grain, salt, and other goods. Officials were even appointed specifically to monitor wind direction. All efforts were made to ensure the timely and proper transportation of grain and other supplies, with efficiency measured in numbers. At the time, the annual volume of grain transportation via the canal was 3 times that of the Tang Dynasty. As management became increasingly refined, the capacity of the canal continued to improve. Nevertheless, during the early Northern Song Dynasty, the Bianhe River, which bore the main task of transporting grain from the south to the north, constantly faced challenges from the Yellow River. During this period, the Bianhe River sourced water from the Yellow River, resulting in a large influx of silt, which caused its bed to silt up with frequent breaches. Zhao Guangyi, who by now had taken his imperial title, Emperor Taizong of Song, once supervised repair work in the muddy waters in person. When someone tried to dissuade him, he replied, "With the capital raising hundreds of thousands of armored soldiers and accommodating millions of people, and the whole nation relying on this canal for grain transportation, how could I not pay attention?" Consequently, the Northern Song government allocated substantial manpower, resources, and finances every year for the maintenance of the Bianhe River. Avoiding the adverse effects of the Yellow River became an increasingly urgent problem.
我们现在看到的这本志是清朝乾隆的己酉年的这个志。这段话呢，就是说在方谕纪要上记载，元丰初，范子渊亦引入洛变，遣宋用臣等相视行矣。
This passage records the measures taken during the reign of Zhao Su, Emperor Shenzong of Song, using the Luaha River as a new water source to address the adverse effects of the Yellow River on the Bianhe River. The Luaha River originates from the eastern side of the Qinling Mountains. Compared to the Yellow River, it has clearer water and a faster flow, making it a better water source. Early in the year 1079, Zhao Su established a temporary agency called Office for Introducing the Waters of the Luaha River into the Bianhe River. After 14 months of planning and construction, a 25.5-kilometer-long water diversion canal was built, sourcing water from the Luaha River. Sourcing water from the Luaha River allowed the Bianhe River to avoid taking in silt from the Yellow River. This extended its navigation time by almost one-third and ensured its continuous flow throughout the year. With the increasing demand for freight, a series of water transportation technologies emerged to ensure the smooth operation of the canal.
This 里其实就是宋代时候运河的一条主航道。我老家其实就在那个河的对岸。
Here is Chang'an Town, a significant spot along the Jiangnan Canal before it enters Hangzhou. The town of Chang'an is situated along the bank of the Qintang River. During the Tang and Song dynasties, the waterway's tides constantly deposited sediment, gradually raising the elevation of the area. As a result, the Jiangnan Canal passing through this area was divided into two sections, with the difference in elevation between them gradually increasing until it amounted to about 2 meters. This made it difficult to keep the canal filled with water, and navigation was often obstructed. To address this issue, a dam was built here during the Tang Dynasty.
这就是长安坝。原来的那个水位的落差就是在那个位置，就是那个坝的位置，这个是可以转的。那么就是说用绳子把这个船固定上之后，然后用人力把它拖上来，绞上来。
Pulling boats over the dam was time-consuming and labor-intensive, and it increased wear and tear on the boats. By the Song dynasty, moreover, the volume of shipping on the canal was much heavier than in the Tang dynasty. To improve navigation, engineers in the Song dynasty developed a new method.
这里就是长安闸的部分，它的整个的设施包括这样几个部分，一个是三闸，就是这里的上闸，那边的中闸和再过去的下闸。
The installation of locks effectively reduced the labor of crossing the dam. In records of my visit to Mount Tiantai and Wutai, written by the Japanese monk Jajin, who visited Chang'an, he describes what he saw when passing through the locks on a boat. The 3 sets of lock gates, upper, middle, and lower, were opened and closed in sequence to regulate the water level, creating a calm surface to facilitate the passing of boats through the Chang'an Lock.
长安闸的这个工作原理在当时是非常先进的。有了这样的一个技术之后呢，运河上的很多的堰就改成了闸来，这个作为一个交通的方式。
With the improvement of technology, the efficiency of the canal was fully utilized. Its capacity for transporting grain reached a peak of nearly 500,000 tons per year. The dependence of the Northern Song government on the canal also directly drove the development of a shipbuilding industry. Here is a modern shipyard in Tongxiang, Zhejiang Province, where a newly built canal boat is ready to be launched. Tongxiang was also a town along the canal during the Northern Song period. To meet the needs of tribute grain transport, the government established a series of shipbuilding bases. As in the past, before building a ship, designers draw proportional design drawings. This method, called lofting, originated during the Song Dynasty.
方样的出现，对你那个每个船钢料的估算呐、包括整个材料的用料啊，基本上一致。我可以一个样板发到很多船上去，同时开工，这个船就可以实现标准化生产的。
The widespread adoption of lofting improved efficiencies and enabled the mass production of ships. According to records, 154 years after the founding of the Northern Song Dynasty, in the 4th year of the Zhenghe period during Emperor Huizong's reign, as many as 2,500 ships were built in just 1 year, averaging 7 ships launched per day. From wooden ships to iron ships, the shipbuilding technology of the Song Dynasty has lasted 1,000 years and continues to be referenced today. From tribute grain transporting to meeting the daily needs of the people, from official channels to shared waterways accessible to everyone, rulers increasingly opened up access to the canal. The development of the canal was important to leaders because it ensured the normal operation of the country. For those living along its banks, it provided livelihoods and new business opportunities. This artwork was created in the early Northern Song Dynasty. It depicts laborers busy working at a watermill workshop at a lock during the height of summer. People in the image appear to be transporting grain, sifting, milling flour, and carrying it, although some scholars have suggested the mill depicted is actually a tea grinding watermill. Records show that during the reign of Emperor Zhezong, the 7th emperor of the Northern Song, there were over 260 watermill workshops processing tea powder along the Bianhe River. Before the invention of steam engines, the people of Song China already knew how to take advantage of differences in water levels along the canal to power mechanical watermills, substantially boosting production efficiency. A type of tea cake from the Song Dynasty is now being researched and revived by today's inheritors. Tea flourished during the Tang Dynasty, yet reached its peak during the Song Dynasty. In the Song Dynasty, in fact, tea became a state-controlled commodity, serving as an important source of national revenue. During the Northern Song period, the Liao dynasty in the north constantly threatened the Northern Song regime. To ensure the dynasty's security, the Northern Song had to deploy a large number of troops on its border. Military expenditures accounted for 70 to 80% of national fiscal revenue at the time. It became clear that agricultural taxes were not enough to fund government spending. Revenue from monopolies and commercial taxes became crucial means to fill the fiscal revenue gap. The tea trade was also one of the ways the government expanded its revenue. To increase its income, the Northern Song government recruited merchants to transport army provisions to the front lines. In return, the merchants were issued with a certificate with a higher value than the actual worth of the goods they transported. The merchants could then exchange these certificates for salt and tea at locations designated by the government and resell them nationwide via the canal. With tea as a state monopoly, merchants could obtain rich profits from it. The Northern Song government used the revenue it extracted from the tea trade, not only to ensure the supply of grain to its front lines, but also to fund military expenses. The canal became the most important channel for tea transportation. Leveraging the convenience of the canal, more and more merchants used it for trade, leading to a significant increase in government revenue. The annual commercial tax revenue of the Northern Song reached several million strings and peaked at 22 million strings, exceeding the peak revenue of the government of the Tang Dynasty. By this time, the use of the canal for transport was no longer exclusive to the state. It became an open public waterway network, hosting an increasing volume of boats, barges, and ships. The canal became the economic lifeline of the nation, closely linking southeast and northern regions that were vastly different in latitude, climate, and product diversity. Despite the improving economy, however, the decline of the Northern Song's power could not be reversed. In the year 1127, the dynasty fell to the horsemen of the Jin army. It was an event that pushed another city onto the arena of history. Hangzhou, located at the southern end of the Grand Canal, also lay on the meeting point of the Jiangnan Canal, the Eastern Zhujiang Canal, and the Qintang River. After the fall of the Northern Song Dynasty, its 10th and surviving Emperor Zhaoguo, amidst turmoil and upheaval, established the Southern Song Dynasty. Eventually, he designated Lin'an as his temporary capital, which is the modern-day Hangzhou. Despite continued threats from northern powers, the Southern Song Dynasty remarkably endured for over 150 years. How was this achieved? Historical Hangzhou and its waterways played a crucial role.
讲一个时代它很散啊，你就找不出聚焦点呢，就人家不知道把眼光落在哪里，你必须要有个聚焦点。从临安城作为一个聚焦点来观察那个时代。
This is an excavation of remains from the Southern Song in Hangzhou. In 2004, archaeologists unearthed the ruins of the period's Imperial Street here. Imperial Street had been one of the busiest commercial areas in Hangzhou since ancient times. Bao Weiman, an expert in the history of Song, has devoted himself to unraveling the mystery of how the Southern Song Dynasty managed to endure for so long.
丁都临安，他想离开这个长江防线，更安全一点，所谓重江之险。大约他的骑兵不能像北方的平原地区这种完全铺开来了，这个使用，这个是肯定，因为你过这个河就不是太方便嘛。当然，主要我们刚才讲了，主要的两条河流，一个是长江，一个是钱塘江，作为重江支线。
Water, then, provided the surviving dynasty with a natural defensive barrier. And in addition to this function, it was also water that gave it the means to thrive. Hangzhou was already a prefecture with a large population under the Northern Song. After the capital was moved there, many northerners fleeing war migrated south. Within the Southern Song capital of Lin'an, the population surged, and there was a huge demand for goods.
玉阶一直是这个城市的中轴线，它的宽度啊、建筑体量啊，你可以去想象跟唐代长安的完全不一样。南宋的有个人叫周辉，他就说，在北宋的时候啊，就在开封那个玉阶呢还是很宽的，皇帝这个反正如皇帝出行，两边的这个老百姓当然根本够不上了，对吧？南宋的时候呢，皇帝出来啊，他说你都可以看到他下面那个穿的这就下摆的裤子，就很近很近，因为它很窄嘛。
During the Southern Song period, political and military confrontations between the empires of Song and Jin severed the canal into two sections, with the northern section eventually disappearing. The southern section of the canal, however, was maintained and developed. With the northern territories lost, the Song re-established itself in the rich land of the southern rivers, with its industrious population working hard and developing commerce. The section of the Grand Canal south of the Yangtze River gradually became the main artery of the Southern Song Dynasty.
这个地区的经济的发展的，它的背后的基础是这个整个的普遍民众的辛劳的投入。你就是你一块田，我一年种2季，它不是说我的产量增长100%就产出是200%了，不是的，可能只增长50%，产出是115%，但你劳动力投入可能要250%。
The existence of the canal amplified the diligence of the common people. Lu Yu, a poet of the Southern Song Dynasty, wrote of the importance of the Jiangnan Canal to the temporary capital, Hangzhou. There were no waterways from Jinkou to Qintong before the Liang and Song dynasties. It was during Emperor Yang of Sui's time that the canal was first dug, 400 kilometers long and 33 meters wide. The court was able to establish its temporary capital in Qintong because of this canal. Both the Bianhe River and this canal were built by the Sui dynasty, but eventually benefited our Song dynasty. Isn't this the work of destiny?
它是一个主要的交通干道，不仅仅是因为它要把周边的这个物资、财政收入通过江南运河运过来，另外呢，也是这个朝廷因为政治中心、指挥中心在这里嘛，它跟外部世界的联络也是主要靠这条河流。
With the relocation of the Song capital, a large number of artisans also came to the Jiangnan region. The handicraft industry along the canal began to flourish. This particular type of dyed and printed blue fabric is called blue calico, known as indigo-dotted fabric in the Song dynasty. By the Southern Song period, the blue calico industry in Jiading and Anting towns had become extremely prosperous. Visitors were greeted with a scene of weaving looms everywhere, dye houses on every street, and a river cluttered with boats shipping cloth. As textile technology developed, the industry's division of labor became more refined. This is a Yuan dynasty copy of the Southern Song, image of plow and weaving, consisting of 24 scenes, depicting the entire production process of sericulture and silk weaving in the Jiangsu and Zhejiang regions, from washing and selecting silkworms in December to putting silk into boxes after being woven. The picture had a wide influence in the Southern Song dynasty, which saw great improvements in silk weaving technology. The efficiency of canal transportation also facilitated the movement of industrial workers, another cause of the rapid development of the textile industry.
因为靖康之难以后，北方很多人逃难逃过来了，所以大量人口聚集在这里，它会推动这个地区在某种程度上的发展。
Before the Jiading period during Emperor Ningzong's reign, In the Southern Song Dynasty, the powerful Jin dynasty from the north never ceased its aggression. The Southern Song Dynasty had to maintain a strong military, resulting in enormous consumption of supplies and other resources. Yet precisely because the Jiangnan Canal spurred economic development along its banks and became an important channel for the government to issue decrees, dispatch troops, and circulate goods, the city of Lin'an had a solid foundation. Perhaps it was adversity that spurred the dynasty's economic resilience. During the Northern Song, Hangzhou was a terminal of the canal. By the time of the Southern Song, it had become the hub of the water systems of the south, the heart of a radial transportation network extending out to different regions. In the bustling capital, markets gradually expanded throughout the entire city. Wu Zimu's Remembering the Prosperity of Lin'an vividly describes the prosperity of Lin'an during the temporary residence of the dynasty. In the capital where the Southern Song court temporarily resides, there is a rich gathering of goods, with various industries flourishing. From outside the Herning Gate to under the Guanqiao Bridge, there is not a single household that is not engaged in buying and selling. The population in the city is thriving, and there are more than 10 times as many people engaged in business as in the past. It is bustling and lively, unmatched by other regions. Today's port city of Ningbo was known as Mingzhou during the Song Dynasty. It served as both the end of the eastern Zhujiang Canal under the Southern Song and one of the starting points for the country's overseas trade. Because of Ningbo's favorable position, trade routes were opened here during the Tang Dynasty to the Korean Peninsula, the Japanese archipelago, and Southeast Asia. Subsequently, during the Northern and Southern Song dynasties, Mingzhou port became one of China's major hubs for seaborne trade, alongside Guangzhou and Quanzhou. Wang Guangyuan, from Ningbo Municipal Institute of Cultural Heritage Management, is currently restoring locally excavated artifacts from the Southern Song Dynasty.
从我们宁波的本地的城市考古这一块来看，来自于全国著名的窑口，在我们宁波城市考古中，其实在南宋这个时期都有发现，包括一些海外的，比如说波斯釉陶啊、高丽青瓷啊，在我们这里其实都有发现的。这从侧面呢，可能也印证了，就是当时我们宁波其实是一个东亚的这么一个商贸的中心吧。
In the early Southern Song, invading Jin soldiers forced Zhao Go to flee Hangzhou by ship. It was during this period that the declining dynasty turned its attention to trade by sea. At the time, the overland Silk Road had been completely cut off. Establishing a new regime was involving great expense. Faced with this situation, the Southern Song court wisely directed its gaze towards the ocean.
因为正好我们知道，从北宋到南宋时期，阿拉伯之地他们发生了这个长期的这个十字军东征，就导致了阿拉伯地区的经济贫困。那么这种经济贫困也促使阿拉伯地区的商人，他们利用当地的资源，然后进一步扩大海上贸易来解决这种贫困。说这种商业举动正好和宋朝发展海外贸易的这种需求呢正相契合。
In the maritime trade linking east and west, spices played a crucial role. As the capital of the Southern Song Dynasty, Hangzhou was the largest market for them at that time. Its residents' demand for goods transcended mere survival and sustenance needs, leading to a rapid change in urban fashion. The upper class, for example, could not do without perfumes in their daily lives. Perfumes were added to cosmetics used by women, and a trend emerged of using fragrance soap for bathing. To meet demand, Arab merchant ships carrying fragrances from the Indian Ocean coast and Southeast Asia sailed through the South China Sea to arrive at the ports of Quanzhou and Guangzhou. From there, they continued along the coast to Ningbo and then to Hangzhou via the eastern Zhejiang Canal. As a result, the canal became the gateway for the Southern Song Dynasty to connect with the world. To manage foreign trade, the court established maritime trade offices in Guangzhou, Hangzhou, Mingzhou, Quanzhou, and other ports to collect taxes. Thanks to the eastern Zhejiang Canal, Mingzhou also became the most important transit station for trade between Hangzhou and foreign countries. Overseas merchant ships docking in Mingzhou transferred their cargoes of luxury goods and commodities onto barges bound for Hangzhou. These imports became an important source of tax revenue for the Southern Song Dynasty, and a new model of combined river and maritime transportation came into being.
那么这种海上贸易呢，它是政府财政收入的一个重要的方面。尽管我们学界目前对它的认识呢不一致，那有人认为它比例很高，有人认为比例很低。综合来看啊，那么海上贸易对整个宋朝的财政，还有财政之外的，那么对外交往以及这种朝贡贸易，它的作用都是相当突出的。
This is the China Port Museum's exhibit, terracotta figurine holding a compass from the Southern Song Dynasty. A Chinese invention, the navigation instrument is testimony to the importance of seaborne trade during the day. After Arab merchants traveled eastward to engage with the Southern Song Dynasty, the compass spread to Europe along with their return trade. This, in turn, facilitated the further development of trade. What the Arabs could not have anticipated was that the introduction of the compass would later act as a vital catalyst for the European age of discovery. During the Southern Song Dynasty, many new sea routes were opened, northwards to Japan, and south through the South China Sea, to the Indian Ocean, the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and East Africa, initiating a true maritime Silk Road. Almost all ancient civilizations have had close ties to great rivers and seas, which supported them as channels of communication and sources of sustenance. In this regard, the Song Dynasty of China stands out as a unique example. It emerged from adversity and flourished amid adversity to make splendid achievements in culture, technology, and economic development. A great waterway flowed through the dynasty, linking its significant milestones and witnessing its rise, fall, and transformations. How was all this possible? After learning about the intertwined history of the Northern and Southern Song dynasties and its Grand Canal, we might already have our own answers.